Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for another episode of Added Time, answering your questions that you kindly submitted for today's show. Got a ton of questions about Chelsea. Apologies to those I can't get to each week, but thank you for submitting them. Some really good ones to get into in today's show. But before we get into any of that good stuff, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Getting closer to that massive 20k landmark for the channel on subscription. So thank you guys so much for your continued support and new subs to the channel, and also hit that like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out the channel as well. So let's get into your questions. Firstly here from Chelsea Nath, who asks, thoughts on Andreas Christensen? Do you reckon he can carve something out at Chelsea? I think he can. I saw an article from Simon Johnson in The Athletic where he discussed and sort of revealed that when Thomas Tuchel was manager at Borussia Dortmund in 2016-17, the same season Christensen went on loan to Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga and impressed. Apparently Tuchel was an admirer of Christensen and wanted to buy him permanently for Borussia Dortmund. It doesn't surprise me with the profile and style of player Christensen is. I think my big issue with Christensen has always been that physique and sort of that mentality he has in certain games to be sort of done physically. That was the most impressive thing, not only against Spurs when he came off the bench, because that's always a difficult situation, especially for such a big player like Thiago Silva. I felt he asserted himself so well in that game when I had concerns about losing Thiago Silva, who's been exceptional for us this season. But then even more so against Sheffield United, I think being commanding, being dominant, those are the things that Christensen hasn't really done consistently as a Chelsea defender. And I'm not talking about screaming and shouting. I'm talking about in physical battles in the Premier League, because unfortunately, unlike the Bundesliga, unlike the Liga where I think Christensen could thrive, this league, when you come up against teams like Sheffield United, are going to test you in different ways. And it's about Christensen being a good enough defender to deal with that. I do think in a back three, he can excel more like he did originally under Antonio Conte in 17-18. But if he takes his opportunity, then I'm happy enough for him to stay. If he doesn't and his old frailty sharp again, I don't think he'll be here that long in my opinion. Neo asks, what's your opinion on Kurt Zouma's future at Chelsea? If he doesn't become a regular starter, then I could see him pushing for a move in the summer. Absolutely. I mean, we are only 4 games into the Thomas Tuchel era at Chelsea, so early days, and I fully expect him to play against Barnsley in the FA Cup because I think it's just a natural game for rotation, and I think Tuchel will see it as an opportunity to see the rest of the players he hasn't so far for Chelsea. And I think Zouma, Billy Gilmore, maybe Emerson, even Kepa potentially could come in goal there. So I think he'll use that as the opportunity to bring Kurt Zouma back in. When you're playing 3 centre-backs, it's always a better opportunity for the centre-backs to get minutes. Kurt has been, I think, mainly very good this season. I think especially earlier in the season, for me, he was really coming into his own. He looked like he was finally asserting himself as Chelsea's best centre-back, or one of Chelsea's best centre-backs. I think very much aided by the partnership of Thiago Silva next to him, especially from corners, finally looking like the threat he could be at corners too. And I think we're missing some of that recently. If he doesn't get game time, I absolutely agree with you, mate. I think he will be looking for a move, because we've seen in the past the likes of Everton coming in for him after he went on loan there. I think even bigger clubs than they could come in for him potentially. I feel at the moment he is in his career right now, I don't think he'll want to wait around any longer. I think he's experienced sort of going out on loan after that injury, where many of us expected that he wouldn't return. He did. If he doesn't get the opportunity, I'm sure he'll be looking elsewhere. And as I continue to discuss in my news videos, all of these reports about Chelsea signing a centre-back, which I fully expect them to do, is going to change the complexion of things for a lot of centre-backs. And centre-backs like Kurt Zouma, who may not be first choice for Tuchel, may look elsewhere. Aaron asks, assuming we keep using a back three for the rest of the season, where do you think Chile fits in? I personally think left wing-back isn't his strongest position and struggles. It's been difficult for Ben Chilwell, and I'm sure mentally as well, in terms of being brought in by Frank Lampard. That was very much and very clearly a Frank Lampard signing, one of the players he really pushed for. I felt was one of the key signings of last summer. He started the season so well, a bit like Chelsea, but really Chilwell for me was one of the most impressive players going up to Christmas. Unfortunately, he has tailed off. He had that injury, or at least he played through that injury. I don't know if that's still impacting him a bit, because he didn't spend a lot of time on the sidelines when he got injured against West Ham. And of course, Marcos Alonso has come into the team, and there are always winners and losers from a new manager coming in, as we've seen. And Marcos Alonso, ironically, has been one of the winners of Tuchel coming in, and Chile has been sort of a loser. But I feel that, of course, on Sunday, him starting that game, him having a big hand in the opening goal, I think that's a big thing for me. I spoke about it yesterday. If you haven't seen my video yesterday, I spoke about Timo Werner, and for me, why Chilwell sort of passes round the corner to Timo Werner for him to run onto could be a way of sort of unlocking Timo in the final third. And Tuchel, despite sort of Chilwell's frailties at the back early on in that game against Sheffield United, he did sort of heap praise on Chilwell of being a really dangerous player in the final third. I don't think left wing back's a bad position for him. I mean, especially offensively, I feel that I still back Chilwell to play more than Marcos Alonso because I think his overall game is better than Marcos Alonso. I think Marcos Alonso can be in this team, maybe in more physical games, can offer you potentially that final third threat of scoring a big goal. But other than that, I think Chilwell's acceleration, his youthfulness, I think his vibrancy, I think just a more dynamic fullback overall. And if, say, Tuchel wants to revert to a back four at sometimes, Chilwell's more suited to that than Marcos Alonso. So I don't feel left wing back is going to hurt Ben Chilwell's chances. I just think form-wise, he needs to get back to the levels he was earlier in the season. So hopefully he'll do that soon. Deepesh asks, are you concerned that Mason is getting so much attention from fans and the media? He was chosen as man of the match against Spurs, but there were 2 to 3 players ahead of him, Jorginho, Cover. At one point, even Tuchel was laughing at the number of questions about Mason. I think there are sort of 2 truths at once here, you know, at least in my opinion. I think that Mason has been incredible recently for Chelsea. He's one of Chelsea's best players at the moment. He has been for a few months, and I think he's even more impressive given the upheaval, given a change of manager, given the poor form that Mason has been at such good levels, and the fact that there's been a change of manager and there's so much noise around Mason, his importance to Frank Lampard, and in moving to a new manager, where would he fit in? Instantly within a week, he's proved all doubters wrong once again. He's going to be an essential player for Thomas Tuchel like he was for Frank Lampard. He's just an incredible player at the moment for Chelsea, and he's essential to what we do. But there also is that side, he's being asked a lot of questions about him, and I think it is unnecessary. I find it a little bit frustrating that haters on Twitter are sort of being brought up at serious sort of points around Mason. You know, I think the majority of Chelsea fans, or at least people who understand the game and appreciate what Mason does, I'm not saying you have to think Mason's the greatest player in the world, but I think that there's an understanding there of how important Mason is. I think that maybe it's just the after effect of Frank. I mean, I think I've seen this a lot sort of from Chelsea fans, or at least online at the moment, or sort of having a go at media for their reaction to Thomas Tuchel. Number one, media, it's not their job to sort of be propaganda for Chelsea and Chelsea fans. That's not their job. Hopefully, as we get further away from the Lampard sacking, you hope that the questions around Lampard, and I think it very much is linked with Lampard at the moment and sort of that relationship there. Mason's doing so well, and the noise around him, that the haters online, it gets more ridiculous and farcical. So I don't think you should pay much attention to it. And I think Mason's mentality is so good that he rises above that time and time again, and he will continue to. So I wouldn't bother too much about that. And I think he has been man of the match in a lot of games. I disagree with you about Spurs. I personally gave Jorginho man of the match against Spurs, but Mason was very close, and he's been very close in most games because that's the level he is at the moment, and I think he deserves praise for it. Adrian asks, Havertz as a false 9. I do like this idea, and I think in this system it can happen. I did say in my review on Sunday against Sheffield United that I think that maybe Tuchel's a little bit annoyed that he hasn't had Kai Havertz. I think especially against Spurs in that sort of opening half where we continue to play the ball in between the lines, and I think that the way I think Tuchel, at least in my opinion, based on the early signs under Thomas Tuchel, very early days still, and you could see Tammy Abraham coming in as a bigger focal point in the near future. I feel he wants a very interchangeable, fast front three that moves. So say it's Mason and Timo as sort of those roaming number 10s, I guess is the best way to describe them, behind a focal point. But that focal point could be Kai Havertz. We saw him do that role brilliantly for Bayer Leverkusen last year. So I could see Havertz do that, and I do think his role in this team under Tuchel is going to be as one of those 3 players, because as we saw against Wolves, him and Ziyech were the 2 players behind Olivier Giroud. I don't think he's going to be any deeper than that. And a bit like Timo Werner, it could be the best way of sort of integrating Kai Havertz into this team, getting him in the final third, in the box where he can be most deadly. So I'd be excited to see that personally, in my opinion. Reese asks, Eden Hazard back on loan move falls. So of course there's been some reports recently and rumours, I think quite ridiculous really, about Eden Hazard returning to Chelsea in the summer with all the struggles he has at Real Madrid at the moment, all of these injury problems. I feel so sorry for Eden, and I do wonder if it's just all of the years of injuries or all the years on knocks. I mean, when he was in the Premier League, he was the most fouled player by some distance. The amount he'd be kicked in the Premier League would be ridiculous. And I even think those numbers would be even more, because I remember many times him not getting fouls that he deserved, to be honest. And I just wonder, with a player of his explosive ability, and also I do wonder in terms of him being the most serious athlete in a sense of on and off the pitch. I don't think he's Ronaldo level in terms of, the Instagram workouts and sort of staying in peak physical condition. We have seen Eden, he does like a burger, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but maybe that's taking its toll as well. It was his dream move. I always did think when he left Chelsea, we got the best of him. I did hope it would work out for him at Madrid, but I always felt that he'd be remembered, his best moments would be remembered in blue, which I think is good for Chelsea, but obviously not good personally for him. I just hope he can get back to some sort of fitness, because he is such an amazing player to watch on a football pitch when he's at his best. I mean, I don't think there are many better players, at least I've seen live. I mean, it was such a privilege watching him at Chelsea. I don't think he'll return, unfortunately, and I think fortunately as well, because think about the way he was able to send off his Chelsea career. That Europa League final, no better ending in truth, and a bit like Didier in Munich in 2012, despite coming back for a year. I think sometimes, as we've seen maybe recently with Frank Lampard, is it always the best idea to return and come back again to a place you've succeeded before? And I think Eden will just maybe want to end his career at Real Madrid, or maybe go back to France after that. We'll have to wait and see. But Eden, I just wish him the best and hope he gets back to fitness soon. Jeff asks, might be too early to ask, but most improved player under Thomas Tuchel. It does feel quite early, and some of the questions I continue to answer more about long-term futures of players. It's very hard to know in injury, suspension, form. A lot can change very radically in football, especially given how many games Chelsea are playing at the moment. And we've seen Thiago Silva get injured, so there's nothing stopping another player getting injured, and one player you feel is certain to start currently may have to take some time off, and another player comes in and takes his spot. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. In terms of most improved, I feel it's between three players for me: Callum Hudson-Odoi, Mateo Kovacic and Jorginho. In terms of improvement, I mean, improvement in their career, I think that Kova and Georgie are getting back to their best levels we've seen in a Chelsea shirt. I've said this before, it's about streamlining their game. It's about Kovacic, his dribbling ability to take the ball, progress it from deep into the final third and be that connector player. I feel if you can streamline his game, he's a very effective player, as we've seen in recent weeks. I think it's the same with Jorginho, being that metronome, that dictator of play, tempo setter, all of that good stuff, and sort of streamlining both of their games, because I think for Jorginho this season, it's been too many safe passes. There's been too many moments I've seen him on the pitch where he has a better option, a better passing option, and he passes it back, does something that just is too simple and just sort of slows down our play. I'm seeing a lot more progressive play from him now, which is better on the Tuchel. It seems like once again him and Kova's game have been streamlined a bit. I would say Kovacic. I think Kovacic is now getting back to the levels he was last season. It impressed so many people. I know people wanting to improve in the final third. For me, it's that final pass. It's not so much shooting, because I don't think he's ever going to be a Frank Lampard. I don't think he's ever going to be a goal-scoring midfielder. I think that's much more going to be Kai Havertz and Mason Mount in this team. What I want him to be is when he does make those brilliant dribbles through the heart of opposition, and when he gets into really good positions. I don't think I've seen many players better at getting into incredible positions on the pitch, but then somehow not having that great decision making at the end. If he can streamline that once again, hopefully with the assistance of Tuchel in this system, and make more killer passes at the end of those great runs, then he can be a serious player for Chelsea. I think that's what he's still lacking. So I'm just going to go with Mateo Kovacic. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch this episode of Added Time. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.